not able to join us will be able to access the recording and then view or listen to today's session. So as I said, welcome to today's session. I'm very pleased that out of the 680 students, 2 students managed to join the session today. So thank you, and let's get the session started. I scheduled the session. It's the first time I've ever had to schedule something like this so that I can give you feedback on the exam that has just gone by. Let me just mute my phone quickly so that we do not get disturbed. And we are muted. So without further ado, let's take a look at today's session. I'm going to chat a little bit about the questions I posed when we prepared for the exams. So each one of you who are attending today should ask yourselves the following questions. Were you prepared with the proctoring app? Did you go through the guide? Did you take the test? Did you do the demo? Did you familiarize yourself with it? Was your space prepared? Did you have a quiet, conducive space? Did you prepare your resources, your study guide, your additional materials? Did you read the questions carefully? Did you align your answers to the case study? Did you paraphrase from the study guide and all the other texts that you used? And did you do in-text referencing? And did you have a reference list? So are we going to work through each of these questions as we go through today's session? So take a moment to just reflect on those questions. We will touch on each of them as we go through the session. I want to remind you, each of you had access to this. So it is hoped that you engaged with the app before the day of the exam. And if you did encounter any challenges, this was the WhatsApp number that you had to contact, not call them, but send a WhatsApp. Your lecturers were unable to help you with any invigilated challenges. So were you prepared with the proctoring app? I would hope at this stage you were prepared, because you are third-year students and it's not the first time you would have used the proctoring app. Yet on the day of the exam, I still had several students who had encountered challenges with the proctoring app. Fortunately, we were able to resolve the issues. Then I want to ask you, to what extent did you prepare your space and your resources? Did you flag and tag the different sections in your study guide, as I encouraged you to do? This saves you a lot of time in an open book exam. Open book exams are a lot more challenging than memory exams because you have to know where the information is in the study guide. I want to also just remind you, I've been accused of making simple things difficult. I've been accused of many things on the Telegram group. I became the lecturer for this module in January this year. So the format and the timing of the exam, I didn't select. That was selected by the previous lecturer. It's pre-programmed in the previous year. So what you got is what was programmed onto the system. I had no control over it. This is a third-year module, so MCQs are not even an option. I did present a class in which I explained the reasoning for the use of case studies or scenario-based assessments, and that is why assignment 1 and assignment 2, I prepared you for that format of assessment. This was a very, very important rule. And yes, unfortunately, a huge number of students simply just copy directly out of the study guide. And I must say, unfortunately, there were quite a number of students who got answers from somewhere, but unfortunately, they were flagged for either either AI generated text or text that was the same as another student. So those students were flagged for disciplinary, and they will be given an opportunity to explain how is it that their work is the same as another student's work when that work does not come out of the study guide or any of the sources I provided. I want to pause quickly here. So one of the rules is you may not simply copy and paste out of the study guide. And it's something I spoke about in assignment 1, assignment 2, and in all my feedback classes. Question 1.4 went as follows. Based on your answer to the previous question, what would an analyst be able to prove after analyzing the data supplied by the network provider? So that was the question about the cell phone record. Question 1.3 was in the case study, who's mandated to obtain the cell phone evidence? And if you made reference to the SAPS and the 205 and Sergeant Pillay and the public prosecutor and the subpoena before a magistrate, you were spot on. Unfortunately, a large number seem to think that the forensic investigator can apply for a Section 205 to get the cell phone evidence, despite the many classes we've had on that. But now, the previous question, now the question says, what would an analyst be able to prove? Now, out of the study guide, there are things like indicates telephonic communication between a specific cellular phone, corroborates a version of a complainant, proves previous possession of stolen property, indicates past geographic location, and so many simply just copied and pasted that out of the study guide, made no reference to Ms. Sitoli, made no reference to the syndicate, made no reference to anything in the case study. And as a result, that was 10 marks. You threw away 10 potential marks simply because you did not paraphrase out of the case study. You did not align your answer with the case study. The next one. Okay, I see we have, do we have somebody who's trying to come in? Nobody's trying to come in. Nomatlubi, can I ask you, I have a split screen, so I'm not seeing if somebody's trying to come in. Can I ask you to just unmute yourself and tell me if somebody's trying to come in, if something's going wrong with the presentation, so that I can give attention to it? Will that be okay? I'm making all of you presenters, so you will be able to have access to your microphones. Nomatlubi, you or Guguletu, either of you can just, yes, please, I see you have your hand raised.
Quick question. Are we doing question 1.4 or 4.1?
The first one I referred to now was question 1.4 out of the exam paper.
Okay.
Okay. Trying to connect my earphones. I don't know why they've disconnected for some other reason. Okay, we are good to go. So let's proceed. Did you read the questions carefully? And at third year, okay, Nomatlubi, I noticed. Thank you. At third year, you have got to be focused on what it is you are reading. When you are an investigator, you have to be aware of your surroundings, when you read a statement, when you read documents, you must have an eye for attention. That doesn't mean I try to trick you. That doesn't mean I ask trick questions. None of the questions were trick questions. All of these you have had in some form or another. So let's quickly look at question. The next one I want to look at is question 3.4. Question 3.4. Now, so many of the students just read identify based on the case study which elements may be considered trademarks of the criminal group, and that's it. Nothing about before. Remember the trademarks before, during, and after. I wanted the trademarks before the commission of the crimes. So giving me the answer of using a Toyota to ram the CIT, that's not before, that's during the commission. Wearing a Mickey Mouse mask, that's not before, that's during the commission. So you would have had to look at, they had to steal a Fortuner before the time, or hijack, or acquire for each heist. They had to get the correct fuel for the flamethrowers. They had to obtain the correct amounts of ammunition. So the things they needed to do, the spotters they had to put out to check the routes, those are the things that you had to talk about before the commission of the offense. I underlined and I bolded the word because I had to change the question from what you had in the assignments. And then did you align the answers to the case study? Some students simply just did not align the answers to the case study. I want to talk quickly about another thing, the surveillance. I asked a question on surveillance. Sorry, I just want to see if somebody's trying to come in. Okay, nobody's trying to come in. Guguletti, you must just say if the lawnmower in the background is bothering, so that I can
No, it's
ask them
okay.
to. Is it okay? All right. I'm sorry. I didn't know the garden people were going to be here. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back to the session. I want to talk quickly about the surveillance question. Okay, so question 2 went about surveillance. Surveillance operations are an advanced form of evidence gathering. Identify at least 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of conducting physical surveillance on the key suspect in the case study. Now, who is the key suspect? You must first of all say, who is the key suspect? It's Miss Sitoli. Then I say this excludes the use of CCTV footage and fixed or static surveillance cameras. So anything in the control room, her arriving there, her working on the computer, not applicable, not applicable at all. What we are referring to here is mobile surveillance. So in other words, we now got information, we're picking up that Miss Sitoli is posting things, and then in a 2-week period, something is happening. So when Miss Sitoli leaves, we follow her with our vehicle. We see where she goes to. She goes to this, let's say she goes to Menlyn. She sits at the Mug and Bean at table number 7. At table number 7, a white man joins her. They chat for 15 minutes. He hands her an envelope. She hands him an envelope. We are all the time, we are taking photographs of this. And then she leaves and he leaves. Now your team must split into 2, because now we must be able to follow the white man and we must be able to follow Miss Sitoli. We will be able to identify his car, his registration, and possibly where he goes to. Then we will be able to follow Miss Sitoli. Does she go back to office? Does she go home? All right. Based on the cell phone data, we can pinpoint her geographically. We can follow her movements geographically. That is surveillance. So in other words, we can identify the movements of Miss Sitoli. We can see people who she's meeting. We can see people who she meets after the heist. We can identify suspect vehicles, get photographic evidence of this. So telling me about the surveillance footage inside the control room, which computer she used, that was never in dispute. We want to know who she's meeting. Physical surveillance outside. Advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages, it's dangerous, expensive, time consuming, and it requires specialized training. So if you talked about the CCTV cameras, it's wrong. It's wrong. I said specifically, not CCTV footage. Hence my question, did we read the questions carefully? And then something that really made my heart sore, despite my repeated pleas, my classes, my warnings. Too many either just referenced in the text with no reference list, or gave a reference list with nothing in the text, or absolutely no referencing, nothing whatsoever. Now, there were students, and believe it or not, a huge number of students passed, and quite a number of students got distinctions because they read the questions, they referenced, they had a reference list. If you had an in-text reference and it wasn't in the reference list, you got no mark for it. If you had a reference list, but there was nothing in the text, you got no marks for it. I explained this to you. You are third year, you are supposed to situate what you are doing in literature. Okay, that ends the talking about the actual exam question paper. Let's talk quickly about the results some of you got. Now, the first one, Invigilator app, if you were flagged for non-compliance with the rules of the Invigilator app, and a lot of you were, I mean about 80% of you were, for out of app time, they applied the rule incorrectly. I did write a memo. I did explain to exams, you were supposed to go out of the app because it's an open book exam. You had to go to your study guide. You had to go to your other resources. So if you were flagged for out of app time, they are going to resolve it. I just don't know when. The same with the supplementary no marks. I don't know what the cause of that is, but if you were flagged for supplementary, then know that you will be writing in semester 1 of 2024. If you were flagged for disciplinary, either GPS or script similarity, then you must look at the evidence that UNISA gives you, and you have an opportunity to try and explain why we found what we found. If you were flagged for an FI concession, you cannot apply for one. The university flags you, then you will be writing probably with the supplementary students. I am not 100% sure. Monitor your email communication from the university. If you are unhappy with your marks, you may apply for a remark. If you need to re-register, if you don't qualify for a supplementary or you failed a second time, I'm going to advise that you re-register. If something happens and there's a release of marks or there was a fault with your mark, then your re-registration will automatically be cancelled. If there's defer or cancelled, you will automatically go to the next exam sitting. I don't know the reason for deferment or cancellation. I did have 2 students for FOR3701 who password protected their scripts. I was unable to mark, so then it would either go through as deferment or unable to read. So these are the things that I got, and I can only speak to some of them. I can't speak to all of them. please watch the university communication for communication about this. Then I want to encourage you. I did post this this URL on the Telegram group. If you click on that URL, you get to an online survey where you can challenge the finding of the Invigilator app for out of app time. I want to encourage you, please do that. Please go and log your query so that the exam system can see, but they need to do something. They need to amend the system. They need to reapply the exam rules. They've got to address the challenge. Guguletu, I see your hand is raised. Please talk to me.
In terms of the subs, the first time I'll be supplementing, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure how it works. Do we rewrite the exam? And then do you only stop when you're on 50%, or you can get more than 50 for a sub?
Okay, so you're asking two questions. Okay. Supplementary means you are getting a second opportunity to write the exam. You will not get the same exam. You will write the exam that the students from semester 1 in 2024 will write. But what I do is you are linked to semester 2 2023 module site. All the communication I post with regard to tutorial letter 201 and 202, the feedback, I will post there. All the additional documents, I will post there. All the classes I schedule, I will also post there. So that you walk the road with these students, with the exception, Guguletu, you don't do assignment 1 and 2. You are not required to do and submit assignment 1 and 2. You can if you want to, but you won't be able to submit it and get marks. You can do it and then check when the tutorial letters come. But you will have access to all the classes, all the resources, all the help. Thematically, as in chapters, the 5 chapters of your study guide, I'm going to cover the same work. I'm not going to change now and do something totally different. I only have 5 themes that I can question you about. So in those 5 themes, you will get exams. Also let the questions and the assignments guide you, okay? And then you asked me a second question and now I can't remember, Guguletu.
The second question was with the sub, when you do mark the exam, do you only stop at 50% or will you continue?
Okay, so yes, that's a very good question, and I'm glad you raised it. With a supplementary, because it's your second opportunity, if you get 80%, you get 50%.
Oh, okay.
Because you just passed, because it's your second opportunity, and because the colleagues that went before you only had one opportunity and they managed to get 60. It's unfair that you're getting a second opportunity and now you have an opportunity to get 80. The university rules reckon that a pass is a pass and 50 is a pass. So sorry if you were aiming for a distinction, Guguletu.
No, it's okay. So we'll be writing this up when in January, or we'll be writing when the first semester ends?
You will be writing with the students of the first semester. So usually, yeah, May, June, you will be writing.
Okay.
Okay. The format of the exam. The format is preset. So I cannot change the format. I have written a memo and asked, please, can we have an off timetable exam over 2 days? I've begged and I'm pleading. So I'm praying for an answer. I'm praying for a yes. Because I also feel that at your level, you are all working students. To have a 4-hour exam, open book for me, it's a little bit tight. So I would prefer a 2-day exam, but please, I've applied. I don't yet know what the answer is. Here are the additional email addresses that you can use to send your inquiries to. If you've sent an inquiry to exams at UNISA, and after, let's say, 72 hours, you get no response, then you send me that email and you tell me no response, and I will forward it to the line manager. We are not allowed to give out the line manager's email addresses, but we may forward complaints we receive from the students. But please, I'm only at work until this afternoon. I will try and monitor. I'm on leave from Monday. I will try and monitor my emails if there are urgent things. So if you do send me something, let's say over the weekend or Monday, I will do my best to forward those emails. But after that, I'm in the bush, where I won't have connectivity, and then I'm going to be out of contact until the 15th of January. And I will not be able to answer you or assist you. I cannot help with remarks. I cannot help with the proctoring challenges. I cannot help with any of the administrative stuff. You have to use these emails and keep proof of the emails that you have sent, please. So yes, I have. That's the end of my presentation. That's the end of my presentation. Let me just see where my next slide is. Yes, and there's my next slide. So if there are questions that I have not covered in the session, you are more than welcome to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask me the question. Welcome, Makolobe. Yes, Guguletu.
Question 1.3. I did
Yeah,
not really answer it on my exam.
yeah.
And you spoke about it slightly, but can you just repeat it, please?
Okay, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Okay. In the case study, who is mandated to obtain cell phone evidence? Okay, who is mandated? Let's hear from the floor. Let's make this a learning moment. Makolobe, who is mandated to get the cell phone evidence? Nomahlube, you can answer us in the chat. Who, according to legislation, may apply for and obtain the cell phone evidence, that cell phone record? Anybody want to try with a comment in the chat box? It's not a trick question. We went through this in, I think, in assignment 1 and assignment 2. And I even got a specialist in to give class. Okay, I see our ladies are very shy. Guguletu, only the South African Police Service, in terms of the case study, is permitted to obtain cell phone evidence. I know National Intelligence, the South African Secret Service, but none of them are in the case study. So only the SAPs in the case study may apply for cell phone evidence. This is Sergeant Pillay. Then you had to tell me about the Section 205 subpoena in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, where you subpoena the cell phone network provider. You had to tell me that it has to go through a magistrate via the prosecutor, where they subpoena the person to come and share the information, but that the cell phone network then provides the information after receiving the subpoena without appearing in court. And through the Section 205 subpoena, the court may grant a subpoena to the cell phone company to say you have to give the cell phone records of Miss Sithole. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's take a look a moment at Miss Sithole. Miss Sithole in the control room. She may be there. So if we want to obtain evidence, let's say in terms of Locard's principle, her touching the computer, her logging into the Twitter account, that's got nothing to do with Locard or Lochner's principle. Locard's principle is only applicable in this case study in terms of the crime scene. Remember, it was never in dispute that she worked on the computers because it's part of her job to work on the computer. If you want to obtain evidence in terms of her keystrokes to prove that she logged into the Twitter account, she sent the tweets, that is electronic evidence. It's got nothing to do with Lochner's principle. Lochner's principle only works on cell phones or communication systems that emit signals. So Lochner's principle only gets used in terms of the cell phone. Please remember that, because it's clear that some students are still confusing Locard's principle and Lochner's principle. So let's go to the crime scene. Now the Mercedes rams into the CIT vehicle. Bam! The CIT vehicle is disabled. It's lying on its side. The robbers jump out. What has happened between these two cars? There's been a transfer of paint. Now, a lot of the times, the ramming vehicle is left at the scene, but sometimes it's not left at the scene and the robbers are able to drive away. So what is left at the scene? Tire marks, paint, glass, probably fingerprints, maybe blood, expended cartridges, fired bullet points, marks from the flamethrower, maybe even shoe prints. That is the Locard's exchange principle. When two physical objects, things you can see with your eyes, when they touch, when your two hands touch each other, my left hand leaves marks on my right hand and other way around. It's invisible, but I leave DNA, I leave sweat particles, I leave hair. That is the Locard principle at the scene. So you had to tell us about the evidence and what can the evidence prove. If they left the car at the scene, the Toyota Fortuner, if they left that at the scene, then you can check the car's GPS system for where it came from. You will probably find out it was hijacked. You can check the car for DNA, for fingerprints. You can check the tires for soil. You can check the air vents for seeds or grasses, which may give you an indication of where the car was. That is the Locard exchange principle. Now, some of you asked ChatGPT, what is the Lochner principle? And Chat told you it's about securing evidence and the chain of custody. That's wrong. The Lochner principle is about cyberspace. When you move around with your cell phone is pinging all the time. It's looking for network. And that's why even if you don't use your cell phone, the battery drains because it's looking for connections all the time. And that follows you. It leaves an invisible trace, footprints, if you will, in cyberspace. And then I can literally follow you. I can see where you stopped. I can see what direction you were traveling. I can see if you were walking or driving with a speed. I can use your cell phone record to see, okay, which are the cell numbers you phoned before the heist, maybe a short while after the heist, and let's say a week or two after that. Is there a pattern? Are there specific people? And then we flag those cell numbers. And then we try and subpoena those records. And even if we can subpoena her cell phone for the data. We might pick up chats on let's say WhatsApp or Telegram or other social media. So remember, please, low card, physical, touch, DNA, fingerprints, Lochner principle, cyberspace, cell phones. Miss Sitoli touching the computer. Yes, that's low card principle, but it's not going to prove anything. She was there. What are we trying to prove? We are trying to prove her linkage with the syndicate, and we can only do that through the Lochner principle. And yes, later when we subpoena the electronic records to show that she logged on, but it was never in question that she used the computer. That wasn't the thing that we had to prove. So I hope you all understand those two things a little bit better. Any other questions? Any other questions? The last thing I want to touch on is the question on the polygraph. Now you had to let the number of marks guide you. So if a question is 4 or 5 marks, 2 sentences will not cut it. But you know what? The rule of thumb is give more instead of less, but don't write nonsense. So always try and explain and unpack. But for 5 marks, you won't write a whole page. For 5 marks, depending on what it is you have to write, to at least 1, 2 or 3 paragraphs, but then with facts inside. Don't waffle, don't write nonsense. It's not always about the volume, but it's about the content also. So 2 sentences of 10 words each, in all probability, won't answer a 4 or 5 mark question. The same, a 10 mark question cannot be answered in a half a page. You have to look at what is the question asking. So let's look at question 5. A polygraph may be a valuable tool for an investigator in certain settings. Briefly explain what a polygraph is and the legislative framework that regulates the use of polygraph examination in South Africa. So this question has 2 parts. What is a polygraph and the legislative framework? I don't know where some of the students found that the polygraph is legislated by some or other security services or the Polygraph Act. There's a Polygraph Act in the USA, but it's not applicable here. So I got the president of the South African Polygraph Association to come and talk to you, and he explained to you that there's no specific legislation, but that its use is framed in terms of the Constitution, the Labour Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and the Employment Equity Act. Those things frame, but there is no specific legislation. And then you have to write, what is a polygraph? How does it work? Who may not be subjected to a polygraph? Ms. Itoli may not be subjected because she is an asthma sufferer, so she may not be subjected to a polygraph. So it's little things, I think, that tripped you up. But if you take what we did today and if you apply these principles, I just want to go back to this quickly. I'm going to go back to this slide. This one. If you familiarized yourself with the proctoring app and you got your space ready and you flagged and tagged your study material, you should have been ready. All you had to do is read the questions carefully and ask yourself, for example, question 5. Question 5 had 2 parts. What is a polygraph? Explain what a polygraph is and the legislative framework. And some just answered the one half. Did you align the answers to the case study? So in this one, if you spoke about the people with medical conditions, people with diabetes or blood pressure cannot be subjected. Therefore, Ms. Titoli cannot be subjected to a polygraph test. Did you paraphrase from the study guide or other text, or did you just copy directly? Did you reference in text and have that in the reference list? Or did you simply just not reference? So these are the questions that I feel needs introspection, and you need to ask yourselves, to what extent do you need to take, and I'm using the royal we. I'm not saying it's applicable to my 4 students who are attending. To what extent should we take responsibility for how well or how poorly we did? I know many of you don't have your results yet because of the proctoring app. But once the results are released, I want you to really think about what you did and how it was done. So yes, that ends my session today. I'm going to give a last round for questions, and then I'm going to sign off. Any other questions? Guguletu, you are more than welcome.
Okay, this is not exam related, but I've been checking online in terms of
Yeah.
like applying for any forensic job, and they always require a CFE certification. What is that? Like, do we need to have that once we're done with this qualification or what?
Yeah, so I see what a lot of the companies are doing now. You get CFE and you get ICFP. Now, the CFE is the Certified Fraud Practitioner. It is an online exam you do if you want to do fraud investigations. So a lot of the companies prefer that and set that as a requirement because it's a very good benchmark to have, but it's not legislated. But I mean, companies may set that requirement. Guguletu, I'm going to suggest that if you are looking for that type of work, look also at insurance companies, at claims consultants, because a lot of your insurance investigators start as a claims consultant, where you register a claim and then you take it through the process, and then the insurance company has like a program that runs in the back and it flags the claim. Let's say there are red flags, and then the flagged claim will go through to an investigator. So you can even start there and then work yourself up into the position. So yes, unfortunately, a lot of them do. The SAPs don't. So please also bear in mind that if you want to apply for a position when they advertise, but also look at traffic police, look at your other military forces, and then obviously in the private space, look at companies who are looking for interns, perhaps to assist. So yeah, that's the long and the short of it all.
Okay, because I was thinking, that certificate, since you're saying we're doing it online, is it once I do have that certificate, will I then need to have experience, or is that enough for me to apply maybe for a claims or whichever other position?
Okay, now I don't think for a claims consultant you'll need a CFE. No, I don't think they require that. But to become a certified fraud examiner, you will need practical experience. So I'm going to type the email address into the chat box. Let me just go get it quickly, and then I'm going to type it into the chat box. I just want to check for the South African one. South Africa. Okay. ACFE, here it is. Okay. Copy, and I'm going to put it into the chat box, and then you can just click on the link and go and read. Let me also, in all fairness, do the ICFP as well. Otherwise, they're going to say I am I am prejudiced. I see commercial forensic practitioners, ICFP. All right. Okay, there's the 2 email addresses. You guys can just click on the link and go and read up what they do. Okay, I will be sharing the recording via the module sites, both for semester 1 and semester 2, Guguletu for 2023, as well as on the Telegram group, as well as on my YouTube channel. So please share the information and yes, encourage other students to please watch the video. Thank you all for attending. I really, really appreciate it. And I really hope the 4 of you have passed and that I'm preaching to the converted. Any absolute last question before I sign off? Okay, nothing. All right, going, gone. I'm going to end the recording and I'm going to bid you all